Hi, Joshua.
Hi, Ma. How are you, Ma?
I'm good, thanks. And you?
Alive and grateful to be alive. I have just made you co-host, and we're just giving everybody a minute or less to join us.
Okay.
So I'm making you co-host intentionally in case you would like to share anything on your side to support questions that we would ask you. Giving everybody a minute or less to join us. All right, so I'm making you co-host intentionally in case you would like to share anything on your side.
Why does this thing have a feedback? Volume.
All right, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we would like to use this opportunity to just welcome everybody. My name is Joshua Awesome. And for the benefit of those who do not know me, I'm a coaching psychologist and also a researcher. I am grateful and humbled to also sit on what is called the Global Academic Research Institute, which is a global research body. Aside also privileged to be part of what is called the African Board for Coaching, Consulting, and Coaching Psychology. If you live in South Africa, you possibly know that this month is specifically dedicated to honor a father of the nation, my hero, an icon that we deeply revere. I feel very special in several ways because the work that I do at the African Institute of the Mind that has support of research colleagues on the continent and across the world has given me the opportunity to be able to, the last 4 years, host people from around the world. And this month is very special in every sense of it, because as we honor Madiba this month, we are very pleased, grateful, humbled, and thankful to be able to have with us Madiba's granddaughter. I like and I love the fact that she is the first of the first of the first. And that's one of the things that my research colleague highlighted in one of the questions that we will be asking her today. So without further ado, if you're just joining us, I'd like to welcome you. But aside welcoming you, I would also like to specifically ask that, everyone, wherever you are joining from, South Africa, Africa, Europe, America, wherever it is you're joining us from, please, you can, just drop an emoji to give a clap to welcome our guest for this very special edition. She's no other person but Ndileka Mandela. Ma, I would like to say to you that this means a lot to us. And I also want to say to you that there are a lot of young persons across the continent. And can I ask everybody to please turn off your microphones and please put it on mute so we're not having any echo in the background here, excluding our guest speaker. So I'd like to just say to you that there are a lot of persons across the continent and across the world who have received this invitation to join us here today. One of the things that I know has happened is that we've received a couple of questions that, we would be talking about and asking you. permit me to wear my coaching psychology cap, as I'd
All
like to
right.
refer to it in this conversation.
Okay.
But I would also like you to just take it away at this point, and just, say a few things to us to start. And then I will do a little bit of collating of some of the questions. Then we can then jump into the conversation. Over to you, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Joshua, and greetings to everybody who has logged on to the session. Okay. Yeah, everybody that has logged in, wherever you are in the world. But as Joshua said earlier on, I usually start off the conversation, I'm the first of the first of the first. And this phrase was coined by a friend of mine, Ndileka. Back when we met in 2017, when I was fretting, not in 2017, rather in 2010, September, I was picking up my daughter from her place, and I was fretting that, I've just, my contract has come to completion with the company I was working for, and they've laid me off, and I don't know what to do. And she looked at me, this woman, and said, "What is your problem?" I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, you're the first of the first of the first." I said, "Okay, you'll have to unpack that for me." They said, "You are the first grandchild from the first wife, from the first son. Leave your grandfather's legacy." It was, when you have a light bulb moment, that was it for me, because, I had been toying that, I don't want to be employed by somebody else. I want to do my thing, but I want to pursue my passion. And that was the day that, this idea of the foundation that I founded, the Ndileka Mandela Foundation, which is named after my father, was conceptualized, and it dropped into my head, which I discussed with my grandfather. And one of the reasons I called it Ndileka Mandela Foundation is because one of the greatest pain of Granddad is losing his firstborn when he was in prison and was not allowed to go and bury him. His letter to the warden at the time is well renowned, that he be allowed human decency and dignity to go bury his son, which has been allowed other prisoners. But in a cheeky Granddad fashion, he says to them, "Well, I would like to partake this journey on my own course without an escort." And I'm thinking, okay, here it is during the height of apartheid, this cheeky prisoner saying that he wants to be let out of prison without an escort. This is a person who skipped the country without a passport, and to go galvanize funds in the African states, in the frontline states. And here he's asking the authorities to let him go without an escort to go bury his son. Of course, it was turned down. So, and also this foundation is, our tagline is continuing the legacy. Because one of the things that Granddad felt were important in the development of a community, in the development, especially third world countries, was health and education, which is why he started the Nelson Mandela Foundation. However, when the Nelson Mandela Foundation rebranded around 2008 and became the Nelson Mandela Center of Memory, the programs that Granddad used to do, he was renowned of having breakfast, and by the time these captains of industry left that breakfast, they were 1 million rand less in their net gross income, because Granddad had asked them to build a school there, and they built a clinic there. So I wanted to continue that legacy of the schools, because those were discontinued. However, I added a third leg, which is a third leg approach, which is youth development, because you cannot talk health education without touching on the youth. And on this youth development program, we have a program called Leading Like Mandela, which is a leadership development framework program consisted of 8 modules, one of them which is Leading Like Mandela. And this is a personal development program that is fashioned under the legacy of my grandfather, how he conducted himself, how he became what you call the archetypal leader that he is renowned. I mean, a conciliator, because Granddad dovetails You know, he was a well-rounded leader that was visionary and could listen and was connected to the people. If you know anything about NLP, he was a rounded NLP practitioner who was both visionary, auditory, and as kinesthetic. I can see you nodding, Joshua. I'm talking your language when I'm talking NLP. So yeah, so that's one of the courses that I did a crash course. I need to go finish it because I find it extremely, extremely interesting and also in terms of self-development. So that's the program that I do. I mean, just shortly on health, we do a sanitary wear program called Pride of the Rural Girl, where we galvanize funding to buy sanitary wear to help the girl child stay in the classroom. In education, we leverage off the fourth industrial revolution in terms of computer labs, science laboratories, sports facilities, and libraries. However, the reason why we did the health one, which was sort of a default, which I saw, well, it's not default as such, as you know, Joshua, it's synchronous, because you can't talk of equipping schools with all these amenities. If the girl learner is not in class, they're not going to be able to participate, because on average, each girl learner loses 50 days of schooling per year due to lack of sanitary wear. Compounded over a 5-year period from grade 8 to 12, a girl learner, by the time they write matric, they will have lost a year of schooling, which impacts on their performance. So we felt that it was necessary to do that, plus the one that I've already told you about with youth development. But that also is there's lots of things happening there that we're busy developing, which has to do with entrepreneurship, because as you can see, there's a lack of skills, there's lack of jobs. I mean, our in South Africa, our unemployment rate is almost 50%. If you calculate, because statistically, it's about 33 to 38%, depending on who you're talking to. But realistically, we are about 50%, because statistics base their data on people that have gone back to look for employment. It doesn't calculate people that have given up, not having gone back time and time again and not gotten a job. So that's me in a nutshell. I think questions will come, as I don't want to give you like a big chunk. I need to, small bites.
Right. So I really just want to just say that listening to you share, the bits that you have shared, and hearing you talk about Tata and his whole consciousness depth. It's quite interesting also hearing you talk about, the work that Tembikile Foundation has set out to do from a visionary perspective. And as I hear you talk about this, I would like to just pause and say something to you. This month, last year, our focus was leading like Mandela.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yes.
How's that for synchronicity? Yeah?
There we go. And I say that from a very good space, and a space to say that I don't believe anything just happens. There are a few things you've also said, and as I listened to you from my professional perspective, I heard you talking about the girl child and the amount of days on a long run that they lose when they are not properly supported in a sanitary way. Now, here's something interesting I should say to you. When Tata turned 95, I went to the city of Ekurhuleni and presented to the entire mayoral team that can we take the focus off what the media is doing to your family about who will take what when Tata is passed on, to doing something honorary for him. And let's climb Kilimanjaro in his honor and then donate sanitary wares to girls in Ekurhuleni in honor of Tata. Now, the statistics don't lie. we can Google the internet, you would see that Ekurhuleni back that year produced the highest top learners across the country. The internet is there. Now, why am I saying this? The reason why I'm saying this is because as we serve the world with our gift, as we show up on the planet and give of ourselves, the spirit of Madiba, in a way, is catalyzing success in leaps and bounds beyond our imagination. And so I just wanted to say that to you, to say, you know, thank you for the work you are doing. Thank you for that which you have done. And I'd like to now jump to my next question, which I see is already on my screen.
Okay.
So in your book, I Am Ndileka, it actually is an interesting book. And when we walk past, you know, the bookstores in our great country, it says, I am Ndileka, without the surname. Now, somebody said, did you ever feel like the iconic surname, you know, kind of wanted to overshadow you in any way? You know, and why the emphasis on being known as Ndileka? You know, did you feel you were going to be invisible at some point of your life? And how did you own your space to become invisible?
I have been invisible in the because, especially when Granddad was alive, Granddad was larger than life. So his personality tended to swallow us alive, because I was never known as Ndileka, the founder of Ndileka Mandela Foundation, or Ndileka Mandela, the author. I was known as Ndileka Mandela, the granddaughter of. So it was almost as if I was an appendage to Granddad. And that bothered me, because I'm a woman that's now over 55. I've come to my own, and I needed to carve a niche for myself. Certainly when Granddad was in prison, especially because I grew up in the Eastern Cape, in the TBVC state called Transkei, we were sort of sheltered from the political scenario of what was happening in South Africa until I went to boarding school, where I was baptized, as you would read in the book. So from the time that Granddad was then released, because at the time when Granddad was in prison, we were the progeny of a terrorist. So nobody really cared about who we were. But when Granddad got released, you now suddenly found people that would want to associate with you because of who you were. And also the notion that we did not exist outside of Granddad's life bothered me. And also in the books that have been written by Granddad, a single narrative exists. And that is also, I say this with the utmost of respect, that is the lens of Mama Winnie Mandela. It is not the lens of Evelyn, which branch I come from, and that of my father. My father is about a spectacle in the continuum of life of Granddad, in the tapestry of the Granddad's life, in the books that have been written by him, because he is the son that died in a tragic accident. And yet my father lived. He got married. He got me and Nandi, my sister. So he lives through us. I wanted to resurrect him from being a ghost, and also from being stuck in child, because people associate pictures with reality. No pictures of dead are out there in the media of him as an adult. So in people's mind, he is stuck in child. So I wanted to bring my father back into adulthood, and I had to do that. This book was filling in the pockets that I feel I'm missing in my grandfather's life, because in all the books, he's an icon. He is a conciliator. He is larger than life. He is this. He's never a father, a husband, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, an uncle, a sibling. He had siblings. So I wanted to make Granddad whole, to see the holistic picture, because this is a man I saw at his strongest and at his weakest, by virtue of me being a nurse, a medical nurse. So I wanted to fill in those pockets. So to answer your question, yes, I had to claim my voice. My book is me saying, I am here. I am Ndileka. This is my voice. This is my narrative.
As I listen to you, if we were hosting you physically, I'm sure the whole auditorium will stand up right now and just go, you know.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I say it from a good place and one who is deeply grateful for you recognizing the need to navigate, you know, in that space and in that place to basically own your own voice. So what would you say marked your turning points? That's another question that is coming up here.
It would be when Ndileka told me about being the first of the first of the first. That was a turning point in my life. Because up until then, I was forever this Nelson Mandela's granddaughter. And within the family space, I was the communicator because of my personality. I was the contact person to disseminate information within the family. I would, even Granddad's funeral, I was pivotal in it because I like rolling my sleeve. I, created lists from scratch. I was with the funeral planning committee. I would plan for my family to go to the Eastern Cape. Up until then, I was this person, and also being a mother of two. So I was never really, really me. When Ndileka said that, that's what I said to you that earlier on, it was a light bulb moment. That was the turning point in my life to say, okay, this is who I am, and this is what I'm going to pursue.
Wow. As you talk about light bulb moment, the next question is tilting towards mental health, and mental health and wellness, have become incredibly important in the era we are living in. The world has been ravaged by COVID, and it was called a pandemic over a year ago. And as a researcher, I have now come to realize, alongside several researchers around the world, that we've moved from a pandemic to a syndemic. The pandemic was basically COVID, but as it stayed longer than other kind of global diseases and challenges like this, it began to catalyze all type of things in people, from brain health challenges to neurological issues, to multi-system failure and a whole lot of other things. And so the syndemic has now drawn us to this place where we are. And one of the things that is coming to the fore now is a question about, you as a person, how, when you think about your life, your life had some, challenging occurrences, which you also highlighted in your book, about being abused and then losing your father during your formative stages. And your granddad became the man you looked up to. Even though, for you, when we think about it, that was short-lived, because you had to share him with the whole world and after he got released. How would you say this helped you to grieve, to deal with the loss of your father, Madiba, your father?
Well, I was fortunate in the sense that Hondo, who I referred to in the book, which Evelyn, it never made me feel as if I didn't have a father. I had two matriarchs in my life. It was Hondo, with my paternal grandmother, and Oma, because I needed to differentiate them, my maternal grandmother. So these two matriarchs are what you see sitting in front of you right now. They contributed 100% in who I am. Hondo would form the basis of as you would say in mantric terms, all my chakras, from my base chakra to my seventh chakra. So she informed how I interacted with people. She is the one person who introduced me to nonconformity in a good way, because Hondo did not care what people thought about what decisions she made. They were based on principle. A small example is selling of tobacco. back in the 70s, Hundu ran this general dealer shop, which the biggest income generator was tobacco. But when the Awake magazine of the Jehovah's Witness published an article to say that cigarette harms your lungs, Hundu stopped selling cigarettes. We were the butt of jokes in town and gossip. Hundu did not care because it's based on principle and medical research, because she was also a community nurse. So therein was my first baptism of fire into nonconformity. And this would be my life of not conforming to how the perceptions of people, because of the person that brought me up. She taught me to be grounded, not to use the Mandela name as a badge, that it is up to the deeds that you do that will make people recognize you. And the value of hard work. I mean, we had chores when we grew up, and from every day of the week and during holidays, we had chores. And as the eldest in the family, I was tasked with making sure that everybody does their chores. My maternal grandmother is responsible for the way I dress, because she's the person that taught me that this is how you dress for your body type, and this is how you walk as a lady. You walk tall, you pull your tummy in. So these became now my coping mechanism. But in my adult stage, I would say that, how I coped with the loss of dad. Then granddad, when I got introduced to granddad at the age of 10 through his letters, I now had a father figure, because up until then, it was, yes, my uncle was there sporadically, especially when we moved to the Eastern Cape in 1972. There was no father figure, because my uncle would join us later in life when I was already started to work. So granddad became this, which is why I always say that granddad was more than a grandfather to me. He became my father. He is the sum total of how I relate to men and how I benchmark men. I know this is a tall order for the person that I'm dating right now, but this is how I know how a man to be through granddad, because I have no other role model.
Wow. So if your father had lived to this day, do you think your life would have been different? And if so, in what way? This is another question that has come up.
It would definitely have been different, because dad spoiled me. I was a complete daddy's girl, the one vivid memory I have of him, and it must have been shortly before he died, because he had bought me this cowboy outfit. Perhaps he had wished to me that I was a boy, but I now understand through his friends that told me that there was this character that he liked in Western movies called Styles, to an extent that his name, for his schoolmates, he's known as Tembekile Styles Mandela, because of that. He would wear this long trench coat like this character in this movie. So he had bought me this cowboy outfit as a boy. So that's the vivid memory. So I know that had he lived, I would have been spoiled. And through my aunts and some of the Sisulu children, who are my aunts, I know that he would buy them clothes. So I know that I would have been spoiled rotten, whether good or bad, I don't know. But I know that I wouldn't have turned out, my life would have turned out differently.
Right. Well, thanks for sharing that bit. So this month is Mandela Month, and we celebrate the iconic man who is, a father of the nation, a granddad to you. As you had said earlier, you are the eldest grandchild of Tata Madiba. What would you say were your fondest memories that you had with both your father and your grandfather?
Well, it's thing that my dad died at 4. The one that I just shared was my greatest memory of him. The other one is a very sad one, because it was during his funeral. I remember vividly in my grandmother's bedroom, his coffin head was laid there, and he was a bit dark, because my dad was very light-skinned, was what you would call nowadays yellow bone, and I would remember when in the car, my mom was crying and my grandmother was saying, "No, don't cry, you'll upset the kids." So that's a sum total of the memory I have of my dad. With Granddad, there's lots of memories. From the time I first saw him. Okay, what's happening?
Mute our microphones, please.
Okay.
Please, everyone, please mute your microphones. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, the first one being when I first met him at the age of 16 in Robben Island, which was my first ferry drive. But Granddad made it memorable in the sense that, he made me comfortable. This is a man that had been incarcerated for many years when I went to see him at the age of 16 in 1981, but who proceeded to ask me, darling, when last did you have a pap smear? At the time, I did not even, I was still very naive, about a lot of things. So those are the memories. But one that is crystallized in my memory is 2012. And I had taken from the time Granddad, from the time Granddad got sick, I took a sabbatical because as a nurse, I knew that his time on earth was limited. And I decided, okay, I will devote my time to him because I feel that's what my dad would have done until he closes his eyes. So this 2012, it was around September before he took the turn for the worst. I had gone to Eastern Cape because I would go there on a Thursday and leave on a Monday. And I had always wanted to go to movies with Granddad, but it was never to be because he became the grandfather of everybody else. So we were sitting and watching a documentary called Nelson Mandela no, not The Life and Times of Nelson Mandela. There's a documentary done by Anand Singh. I can't remember its name, but we were watching that documentary. And it was just the two of us. The medical team had receded and just left me because they knew that as a nurse, if anything happened, I would quickly get their attention. So it was just the two of us, sharing memories, sharing energy and space together. Because at the time, Granddad was not really in a very talkative mood. But that weekend is crystallized in my memory because shortly after that, Granddad took a turn for the worst. As you know that he was then airlifted December of that year to come back to Joburg, and his health never was the same.
Wow. Sure, interesting. The next question that has come up here is, how would you say you navigated your childhood and schooling without your father?
Well, I think it's, as African people, because of the extended life we have, when we went to the Eastern Cape, we lived with my cousins who were the children of my grandmother's sister's grandchildren and their mother. So it was an extended life. And then we were joined by, then Nandi joined, my sister joined me after 2 years after. I think Nandi joined us 3 years later, around 75. And then came my other cousin from the Sisulu side, Andile came to live with. So it was very easy to navigate life. Like I said, that for me, because my reference point of a family is my grandmother. So I don't have a reference point of that there has got to be a father and a mother, right, which also made me battle in terms of relationship a hell of a lot because this is my reference point. I was brought up by this very, very strong male matriarchs because both my grandmothers were non-conformists because I had this one in the Eastern Cape. I had another one in Cape Town that lived as a Black woman, lived in a colored area, owned a vast piece of land, which was unheard of in apartheid days. So I was brought up by these very strong matriarchs. So my reference point is not of a mother and father. So I never felt the void of not having a father because that is not my reference point.
Right. So talking about values, what values would you say you hold in high esteem? Would you like to share with us?
It would be integrity, compassion, empathy, and being on the strict and narrow, because of the way I was brought up. you know, and yes, I'm not saying that I don't lie, I don't do wrong things, but by and large, when I do things that I know my grandmother would not approve of, it's like she's right here saying and having the scowl on her face that, how dare you? This is not how I brought you up. So those things, I mean, that's why for me, things like corruption, they really rub me the wrong way. Because I feel that you're robbing people out of what is inherently theirs. So injustice, it grates me the wrong way. So because I was brought up in a certain way, I held those things that I have got to be just in the way I treat other people.
And talking about treating people, what message would you want young people and people around the world who will be watching this today, you know, and in the near future, to have at the back of their mind, leadership and society at large, to also remember as we commemorate your grandfather?
It is that we are all leaders in our own right. And leadership is not a position. Leadership is intrinsic. It is how you conduct yourself, because that's how Granddad conducted himself. At every point of his life, Granddad conducted himself as a leader and was able to choose things that catapulted him to the next level. From the time he was a boy, he then is taken to John Mtaba's house. When there's an arranged marriage, he decides this is not for me. He has a choice. He takes a choice of actually go on a thing, but that catapulted him to the next level of his life. He then meets Walter Sisulu. He makes a decision, which is one of the reasons he then divorces my grandmother of joining politics. So every point in his life, he had a choice. So are we all. At every point in your life, you have a choice. However, the choice of whether you regress as a person or you move forward depends solely on you. If you look at my grandfather's life, every choice he made through the continuum of his life catapulted him to the next level.
Wow, profound. Catapulting to the next level. And talking about catapulting to the next level, the Thembekile Foundation has one of its pillars as health, which is very special for us at the African Institute of the Mind, where we focus on mind, brain, and body. So, and I'd like you to just share with us, you know, based on the work you do at Thembekile Foundation, what impact would you say you still would like to see on the planet from a health perspective that you have not seen yet?
Well, it is optimum health and also the gift of yoga. I say yoga because yoga is one practice since I started it in 2004 that grounds me. It also brings me back to basics because yoga is aligning mind, body, and soul, or mind, body, and spirit. Because most of the time we think a human being is mind and body. We forget the spiritual part, which is inherently what actually progresses and makes us better people. So yoga for me is one gift that I would really love to give to people, especially because yoga is also meditation, moving meditation. One of the greatest things that Granddad always lamented about is the value of meditation, because meditation allows you to take a step back and be able to process things. One of the things that he said he missed about prison was the time to meditate. Because he says when he came out of prison, it was almost, he never had time to meditate, to have any, even if it's 15 minutes in the morning, you need to meditate. So for me, if the whole world were to do yoga, because yoga is the one thing that brings you back to balance in terms of even your health, it brings everything to balance. There's certain yoga postures that regulate your thyroid. They regulate your melatonin, which is controls the sleep and wake cycle. It regulates your pancreas. So yoga for me is the ultimate go-to healthy living lifestyle because it brings everything into balance.
Interestingly, as you were talking about this, and I said I was wearing my coaching cap in this conversation, I heard you talk about Tata and meditation after prison, that he wasn't able to do it properly. Are you indirectly saying to us that one of the things that helped Tata back in prison was meditation?
Yes. I believe Granddad would have died a young person because he was very militant. Prison allowed him time to slow down and also gave him time, because when you're in solitary confinement, when those locks go in, you are alone. There is no other person. It gives you time to reflect and to think things through. And had Granddad not gone to prison, he would have, the boys would have shot him. So prison allowed him that time to take a step back. Therein is meditation, because meditation is nothing else than taking a step back from the milieu of what's happening around you and process them.
Right. Interestingly, I was actually trained as a stress reduction specialist by John Kabat-Zinn. And John Kabat-Zinn's belief about how to download and reduce your stress levels, he uses this definition that meditation is the awareness that arises from paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally.
Therein is it. You are being deliberate about what you want to extract from. Therein is the crux, being deliberate.
Interesting. So in a world where authenticity is not valued much as conforming to a popular culture, it is said that many women hide their pain, and some die in their pain without help. Somebody has asked, what message can you send or share to those suffering in silence?
You can always have one person to speak to. I honestly do not believe that, because human beings, we crave other people. We crave, which is why lockdown made people go nuts, because we are social beings. So I do believe that there is that one person who will never be judgmental, be it an aunt or a confidant or a shrink. For me, I mean, to be able to process things that happened to my life, I had a therapist. I was in therapy for 3 years, because sometimes you find it difficult to speak to people that will be non-judgmental. And a therapist, therein comes a therapist. But I do understand that not everybody can afford a therapist because they don't come cheap. So there's always somebody you can talk to. And sometimes it's not even about talking. It's about jotting down what you're feeling on paper, because you can be able, which is another reason I wrote a book. Because when things are happening in your mind space, sometimes they might as well not happen because you haven't made sense of it in literal form. So for people that don't have anyone to talk to, it can help to write things down. And if there's anger in what they feel, pour out that anger on a piece of paper. And then take that piece of paper, tear it into small pieces and burn it, because energetically speaking, you are burning and dissipating the anger that you have.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so there's one question here, which I would ask you next, and then we would then begin to wrap it up. And this is actually very special. Umuntu, ugumuntu, ngabantu. How best can we recultivate the culture of Ubuntu?
We need to be deliberate about what to do, because we never are deliberate. We say these slogans, and it's about sloganeering, Umuntu, Ubuntu, Ngabantu. What does that really mean? If you have to look at right now what's happening within this looting space and what is happening in KZN right now, in Phoenix, where a community has decided to be vigilantes and shoot people and kill them because they are racially profiling. What happened to humanity? So we can't just say these things and umuntu, umuntu, ngabantu, and because it's like reading a bumper sticker, because we don't inherently live it. Because if you think about it, umuntu, ubuntu, ngabantu, umuntu, ubuntu, ngabantu, there shouldn't be a person that goes to bed hungry without food if we really were deliberate about living that slogan, about living that saying. So we are just saying words that really don't mean anything. How we can be able to do it is to live it in our everyday lives. And also this notion of the 67 minutes, for me, at times it irritates me because it has become a PR exercise of people will go paint a school. What happens after that? After you painted the school, do you go back to that community? So Granddad wanted us to live 67 minutes every day, which is why he said it is in your hands. And people tend to think that we need to do this grandiose thing of building a school. Not necessarily so. A kindness you extend to a person, one person, because I believe you can change the world one person at a time, one community at a time. And then we have the economies of scale from that. So if you can start in our own circle of family, which is the family unit that you can control. A lot of people have family members that are lacking, that do not have anything, and they have things in abundance. It starts with a family member. That is an aunt in Ngobo somewhere, or Chofimbabo, or Skawini somewhere in the rural areas, or Unulundi. It starts with that family member. You can't start exercising kindness to strangers if you can't be kind to your own family. Charity does begin at home. So if we are deliberate about Ubuntu within our families and extended family, we can have these economies of scale, because the microcosm of society is family.
Wow. I love those words. The microcosm of society is family. Okay, so as we begin to wrap it up, there are a few things that I'd like to say. And those who are on the call, if you have any question that has not been asked and you would like to ask it, you can please lift up your hand virtually, and I will take one or two. And as you heard, Ndileka talked about the need for us to be mindful. Maybe we would close with a 1 minute or 2 minutes of being mindful here, just to wrap up. So if you have any question you would like to ask her, please lift up your hand, and I will gladly just, invite you. I am looking. Okay. All right.
No, nothing, Joshua. No questions.
It's okay. Great. Okay. Since there are no questions, we will begin to approach the end of this, and to begin to wrap it up. I would like you to do one thing. Type in one word that you would like to say comes to mind. What have you taken away from this session? Please type in your one word below in the chat box as we begin to approach the very end. So what is your one word? Somebody says this is awesome.
Okay.
Right.
Well, you're the awesome,
Lady's name
coach
is
anyway.
Tembo. Okay. Lillian's one word is compassion. Abel's one word is empathy. All right. Priscilla's one word is unity. Okay. Keep it coming, guys. What is your one word that, you know, this has unpacked, unfolded to you? Okay, my one word will be interconnectedness. That is my one word.
Okay.
Well, you have said a couple of one words. Someone said Franklin from West Africa, actually from Nigeria, says his one word is refreshing. Okay. Somebody else says their one word is inspired. All right. Okay. Iola from the United Kingdom says his one word is beautiful. Okay. Lovely, guys. Jane, also from West Africa, says her one word is enlightened. Well, thank you, everybody, for your one word. I see Ndileka nodding her head. Thank you for honoring us with your presence. Everybody, please just share your thank you. Please express your thank you with us to Ndileka. And I'd like us to just close, you know, with a 2 minutes or less of being mindful. Okay, so it's not something that requires you to, you know, sit cross-legged. You can take the posture you are taking right now. You may close your eyes if you want. If you don't want, you may just take a lower gaze. And as I begin to tune down the volume of my voice, I would like to ask right now that you take a deep breath in. And if you may, hold it and out. In and out. As you take the next breath, think about the sky and the clouds. Whatever it is that is burdening you or clouding your mind, see them just as the cloud up in the skies, passing away. As you take your next breath in, breathe to health, and exhale out. As you take the next breath, breathe to well-being, and out to whatever it is that is holding you back. Breathe in peace. Exhale pain. Breathe in gratitude. And exhale grounding. One more time, in and out. If you had closed your eyes, you are welcome to open them. Thank you.
Namaste.
I see you. I honor you. I respect you. I celebrate you on behalf of the African Institute of the Mind and everyone who has joined us from across the continent of this beautiful continent of ours, that we are Africa. It's not the space that makes us Africa. We are Africa. Africa runs within our veins. and everything we are expresses this beautiful continent called Africa. We thank you for honoring us with your presence. I'm not going to be sentimental, and I'll just tell you straight. I feel as if I was born into the Madiba family.
Good for you.
A lot of things about me that talks to who he is. The pattern on my head was actually inspired by Madiba. And I say it from a very good place. People have asked me around the world, from our office where we do some research workouts in Switzerland, to Kilimanjaro that I climbed in his honor when he turned 95, to West Africa, Nigeria, the land of my birth. And people have asked me, wait, why do you have this center pass? And I say to them, for me, it was inspired by Madiba, and it means pathway to possibilities. And I'd like to just close with that and say to you that you honoring us with your time and your presence today is something we treasure. And offline, I will tell you some very interesting things that we will stalk you about.
Okay.
Because there's certain things you've talked about that resonates with the Africanity of the mind. And my assistant, Priscilla, can hear that right now. So she's going to start sharing dates with you to say, Ndileka, when can we have this meet and connect? I think the one thing I'd like you to please have at the back of your mind is that the African Institute of the Mind does a couple of things that the Tembikile Foundation does.
Okay.
So collaboration is one of the words of the new season. And so we would like to take this to the next level and see how we can do some collaboration work with you. And who knows, maybe a book will be born in the near future.
From this. You never know, Joshua. You never know.
But once again, we deeply appreciate your presence. It is the best present we can get on Madiba Month as African Institute of the Mind. On behalf of every one of us, thank you one more time for honoring us with your time and your presence. And from me, we wish you the very best in the days, weeks, and months ahead. All right. Do you have a final word you want to say to everybody?
Well, it's only to say namaste, which means the divine in me honors and acknowledges the divine in you. I am truly, truly humbled to have been part of this session, and I look forward to the future collaborations we talk about. Collaborations are the mother of, economies of scale.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye.